what the Democrats should be doing is they should have ads in all of these battleground states and states that are critical in the midterm elections with a chainsaw showing how many jobs have been cut. And these are real people.
I actually agree. I think Democrats should run their midterm on being the party of bigger government.
No,
Republicans should run on the party of smaller government. And I think these ads would be quite effective.
There are two things. What you forget is that when Trump was president when Trump was president last time around.
Scott Jennings continues to school liberals on CNN while using their words against them. The newly passed budget bill from the House could give way to $5,000 dividend checks. A senator confirms that they could pass a bill providing taxpayers with some much needed cash. And former White House press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre is back on the news with some new lies. Now, if you guys appreciate the daily updates, please take a second, hit the like button for the video and subscribe to the channel. Guys, I've got all that and a whole lot more in today's video, so let's go and get started with Scott Jennings. So Jennings is the lone conservative within CNN who liberals despise. This is because he operates under a code of common sense. Now, if you've ever watched this guy, then you'd probably heard him ask questions that you and I would probably ask the left. It's also amazing how CNN can get the most unqualified people to talk on air as their experts. Listen to how these so-called experts go back on their own words since Jennings calls them out. Watch.
Can we be real for a moment that Doge is not about cutting money, right? It's not about spending. It's about shrinking government so that it'll be too small to stop Trump with whatever else is in this plan.
Why would the government stop Trump? Isn't he the head of the government? You're saying the government would be too small to stop Trump. If Trump's the president, why would the bureaucracy be actively trying to stop him?
Because he is shredding the Constitution and creating an authoritarian dictatorship. That's why.
And no matter who is in office, I'm going to hold them accountable. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure the government is working for the American people.
Both of you all made an interesting point, which is that your view is that Trump is shredding the Constitution. I'd like to hear more about that. But that it seems to me that you all both believe that the unelected part of our government, the bureaucracy, has a responsibility to resist the political leadership. Is that your view?
That's not actually what
not
we
at
said.
all.
We said they are upholding the Constitution, the principles of the Constitution, and at times
how is Trump shredding the Constitution?
My God, he's like.
Seriously, do we have to give you a civics lesson that we have?
I don't know
that we put all power in the executive branch, the legislative branch. The FBI, now we're in control of the military, we're silencing media. This is what you do in a dictatorship.
Are you suggesting that the president is not the commander-in-chief of the military?
I am suggesting that the president is going to put in charge somebody who is going to contravene the Constitution. And at some near point, this conversation will look very silly for you because it will be obvious. And right now, you're gaslighting. But when we get to the actual rubber of the road of this, it will be clear.
I'm interested in this conversation. He's going to put someone in charge who will contravene the Constitution. Like who? What do you mean by that? The president is in charge of the military, is he not? You said he's going to put someone in charge of the military?
The president is in charge of the military. That is how it works.
He was elected president. We, according to the Constitution, vest all executive authority in a president. And the concept that the military should be an independent agency or that the bureaucracy should resist the political leadership of this government is extraordinarily dangerous.
That's just straw man.
That's literally not what we said.
I'm just repeating back to you your own words.
The sheer amount of gaslighting that they do to Scott Jennings is just insane here, right? Because he's literally repeating what they just said. And just because Jennings was able to correctly view it as a dangerous precedent, they suddenly changed their minds and they say that they didn't say those words. This is next level insanity, guys. And I think that it's genius that he just keeps letting them talk themselves into a deeper hole. They don't even realize they're being trapped by themselves. Because at the end of the day, guys, like they're going up against President Trump and his policies simply because they don't like him. Now, just to be clear here, guys, Elon Musk isn't overseeing any government agency. And again, Jennings was literally repeating what Philip said. Now, to say that Elon Musk is overseeing the FAA would be equal to saying that he's in charge of those agencies. What he and Doge are doing are checking for wasteful spending. And it's funny because when she got caught for alleging this, she just up and wanted to change the subject. Did you guys catch that? And if Scott Jennings wasn't on the show, it wouldn't be called Newsnight. It would be better to call it Gaslight. Doge, on the other hand, is gaining a lot of traction as it's becoming very popular with a lot of Americans. Watch.
Brand new polling, which shows overwhelming support for the Doge cuts. When asked if the U.S. federal government debt is unsustainable, 67% say, heck yeah, it is. It's unsustainable. 33%, nah, man, we got this. But when asked if Doge is helping make major cuts in government expenditures, 60% say, heck yeah, it's helping. 40% say, no, it's not helping. And finally, when asked if Doge should have access to the sensitive data, remember that one? 58% say, heck yeah, give them the access, compared to 42% who say, no, don't give them the access.
Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below. Doge is becoming much more popular these days, and I think the possible dividend checks worth $5,000 has helped in doing that. Now, it's not a 100% sure thing, but these cuts from the latest budget bill, it could very well give way to it. It's not like we haven't gotten stimulus checks before, multiple times actually. Senator Tim Scott was recently on Fox News saying that it is possible for them to send these Doge checks that could go from $4,000 all the way up to $5,000.
This idea of maybe a portion of the money that is saved, which is our money anyway, would go back to the public. What do you think of that?
I think the faster we get money back to the average American, the better off we are.
Could you do it? Could you pass it?
4 or 5,000. Absolutely. I think we can pass it. Listen, we did it during COVID. We can do it again. The good news is letting Americans keep their own money ought not be a novel concept. We should just not take it in the first place. You don't have to give it back. And so everything we do now to uncover waste, fraud, and abuse and give that money back to the American people, that's called hallelujah in South Carolina.
I like it. Well, you know what? And you put a fine point on that, because the money that was given in 2016 really indemnified the nation from much more pain as the pandemic was hitting. And of course, that situation was exacerbated when Biden came in and inflation went up and so on and so forth. But that kind of built up a wall for it, as I'm understanding with you. We want to keep that wall. Walls work.
Exactly. Economic resiliency is when the American economy is doing well, which means that there's more money in the private sector than there is in the government. The more the government spends, the faster inflation goes up. The faster inflation goes up, the faster interest rates go up. When that happens, fewer Americans can afford a home. Fewer Americans start businesses. Fewer Americans can borrow for new cars. All that goes away when we fix the economy with one basic philosophy. A good economy makes all things possible economically, and that means the private sector should be the focus of the resources in this nation and not the federal government. In South Carolina, we call that common sense.
We're going to have to hold them to these promises, even though they all sound good. Now, I want to pivot just for a second to former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, as she's back on the news. And guess what, guys? She is still lying for the former administration.
We remember Biden wandering around lost, speaking gibberish, shaking hands with ghosts, and the binder calling it all a cheap fake, remember? Trump doesn't stop talking to the press. Biden hid at a bunker. Can Binder explain that?
The president spoke to it himself. He was very honest. He was like, look, I don't speak as well as I used to. I don't move as well as I used to. He was very honest about what the American people were seeing. So he never hid from that. As far as it comes to interviews, look, this was a different media landscape. It really was. He wanted to talk about issues, and it was very hard to have interviews where we were able to talk about issues.
As far as most of us know, the former president was the one who just kept avoiding interviews, not the other way around. Because what journalist wouldn't want a chance to ask questions to the president of the United States? She just doesn't want to acknowledge that they avoided the media so as to hide his mental condition for as long as they could. Well, those days are long behind us now. We now have a president who's talking to the press as much as he can. Now, speaking of which, I want to redirect you to another video where I provided an important update, one that talked about the many shows being cut from MSNBC, one of which is Joy Reid's and how this might affect other people in the network. Rachel Maddow being one of them. Anyway, you guys got to check that video out next. As always, appreciate y'all hitting the like button and subscribing. And you saw how Abby Phillip had to swoop in because their invited expert kept saying that President Trump isn't in charge of the military, what an idiot, exposing himself for not knowing what the heck he's talking about. Now, what I love about Jennings is that he doesn't let these liberals get away with wordplay, the act of saying one term and meaning another. Look at how he makes Phillips squirm as he tries to answer a simple question. Watch.
Scott, that's an obvious.
We had to take ethics. We had to take ethics
obvious
courses.
conflict.
You can't do it. It's a conflict.
He's not making the grant decisions.
How do you know that he's not making the grant decisions, Scott?
I mean, they've said
he's over
not.
at the FAA saying he's got his hands in everything in the government, and his company gets a contract. That's a clear conflict.
How do you know that he is?
That's also
you're alleging that
Scott,
he is personally writing the grants for himself.
We played the sound. Donald Trump was asked by Caitlin Collins about that exact scenario. He said it wouldn't happen, and it's happening.
You're alleging that you two are alleging that he is in a government office personally writing grants to himself. I think that is a major allegation. If you're prepared to make it,
Scott,
go ahead. But I think you're out of it.
Sochi, just a second, because Scott, we're first of all the kind of wild. If you're making that allegation, it's almost like a threat. I don't think that that's warranted in this situation. Ethics laws exist in this country, and they have for a long time. And they apply not just to people like Elon Musk, but just regular old staffers who can't go to a lunch and have someone pay for it for them because of conflict issues. So Elon doesn't have to write the check for himself, but his presence in the agency where he himself is receiving a benefit is a clear conflict. It's not an allegation of him writing a check to himself. It's just pointing out.
You just alleged he has a conflict.
No.
It is an allegation.
It's just pointing out that generally speaking, in the government, you are not allowed to oversee business where you profit.
I don't think he's overseeing the FAA. There's a Secretary of Transportation.
That's a basic principle of things.
He doesn't oversee the FAA.
And if you want to argue about that, then look, when you were serving in the government, didn't you have to take ethics trainings and sign ethics agreements that prevented you from doing that very thing?
Are you alleging he's overseeing the FAA?
Scott never said that.
Okay, we're gonna move on.
You make an allegation.
The Secretary of Transportation literally invited him into the FAA to oversee the thing that his company is now profiting from. Those are all facts that are out there.
What do you mean? You said he's overseeing the FAA. That's what you're saying.
No, she said the person that's overseeing.
Coming up next,
You're changing what
we have a lot.